I love language learning because it's one of the most transformative and magical experiences that I know of. I think a lot of people, though, who try to learn a language get frustrated because when they try to get immersion into that language, either by speaking with a native speaker or watching a movie or TV show, for example, in that language, there are just so many terms that they don't understand that they get frustrated and they think, I'll never learn this language. So to help you get to an immersion level of speaking a language, I've come up with 5 ideas that I think are really powerful because they allow you to start getting that immersion experience, even if you have like just 1,000 words of your language, your target language's vocabulary. These allow you to do this because they have context, which you often are lacking in other, if you're just hearing audio or something like that. If you're speaking to a native speaker and they just throw out some words that you have no context. Context is how we naturally learn language. When we're talking to, when we're like a baby and our parents are talking to us, they use toys, they use things around us to supply that context. The first words that we use are the most relevant words, like mom, dad, food, things like that, that we actually experience in the real world. And then later on, as we start to build our vocabulary, we can get into more abstract ideas and concepts. So the first idea is to use Wikipedia, and what I'm talking about is, did you know that there are 317 different languages in which Wikipedia articles are written? The largest number of articles is in English, but there are many other languages, and pretty much every language that you study or can study, there is a Wikipedia. The trick with Wikipedia and using it to grow your language skills is to read articles about things that you are genuinely interested in. So if you're interested in biographies, read biographies. If you're interested in crafts, read about crafts. If you're interested in history, read about history. If you're interested in whatever, sports, there's articles about it. So have that genuine interest, and then you'll find vocabulary. And the great thing about Wikipedia is that when you hit a lot of terms, almost, not all of them, but a lot of them, unusual terms, will have a link to that article. So again, you could follow it and get that context. You can eventually, if you want to look up a word, you can, but it's good to just try and understand from the context what the meaning is. The second idea is to use movies, TV, YouTube, whatever, video, to get the context. It is helpful, but also to use subtitles, and not subtitles in English or whatever your native language is. You can start there, and that's usually how you begin, but you want to get away from that and get to subtitles in the actual language, your target language, as quickly as possible, because then you'll be forced to use those contextual clues. And because it's video, there are a lot of visuals that will allow you to see things and pick up things pretty quickly. If you're hitting tons of vocabulary words that you don't know in the language, a good way to get around that is to start with simpler videos, like children's videos, like cartoons. Cartoons are a great way to use a simple vocabulary level, but real-world examples in how people actually talk. But focus on the gist, and it's amazing how quickly your brain can pick up the general ideas when it doesn't have English. It's tempting to switch to English subtitles, but use the actual language subtitles. And reading and hearing at the same time, it will be a little easier. Another great way to use context is magazines, because a lot of them will have context through the visuals, but also a lot of key ideas will often be subtitles and little captions and things like that. And there's also a lot of slang, so that's a little more natural. So I like magazines. I look at them all the time in other languages. In the US, there's an app that my library has called rbdigital that is, one, it's free, so there's a lot of magazines, but two, it lets you filter by the language, and this is great. So if I want Spanish magazines, I'll just filter by Spanish. Check to see if your library has something similar. Another great way to use context is children's books. Children's books, especially for younger children, they, like the cartoons I mentioned, will have simpler vocabulary, a lot of illustrations, and these things will make it a lot easier. Any way that children learn a language is probably pretty effective, because they don't have the opportunity to use another language to learn the language. They just have the world and the language itself. They're using that context all the time. As you progress too in your language learning, older children's books will have better vocabulary, probably less illustrations, but they can also be easier than books aimed at adults. And then finally, I'm going to mention comic books, also a great example because a lot of illustrations. And there's a website I'm going to link to in the info below that has tons of public domain comics that you can download for free, and the actual link that I'm providing is specifically for comics in other languages, so you can see if your language is available. Hope this list helps. The key thing is to find something that you enjoy. If you're not enjoying it, you're not going to stick with it, and you're not going to pursue it. So find the avenue that really allows you to learn and do what you enjoy doing in your language that you're learning. If you've enjoyed these language tips, be sure to subscribe. I'll talk more about language in future videos.